Welcome back to Life at the Manor. Today is a really exciting day because we get to introduce you to all the family members that play a pivotal role of keeping this family estate alive.
When we were kids, we were the generation to be seen but not heard.
Every day was different. You can imagine living here on the farm. There's so much stuff to do.
It's the house which works. The house is all-encompassing. It's like a family member. It's been a privilege and a surprise that we are here today.
Chavenage, our family home, has covered many, many centuries, and the core of the house dates back to the 13th century, which is pretty mind-boggling to get your head around, isn't it?
Absolutely crazy. Now, since the house has evolved since then, so has life at the manor. But trying to think back to the 13th century and what life was like is almost too hard to imagine. But what if we went back 100 years ago? What did life look like, and how has it evolved?
The ballroom and the servants' wing had just been built, and the wider estate was bustling.
Chavenage was run by a small team that lived and breathed the estate. We had
A gardener, a groom, chef, a gamekeeper.
Wine, Mr. Losey Williams.
We even had butlers. Thank you, Thomas. Times have changed and it's got more and more expensive to employ people to do the work. And so it falls to the family. The family are what keeps these magnificent old buildings and estates alive. Chavenage is still here today due to the dedication that the family have put in. And my Aunt Caroline has developed a mean skill of drafting in free family labour. The only trouble is that no family member comes and visits us on holidays because they know they're going to get put to work. But on that note, I think it's about time we check in with Caroline, who has been a bit of a cornerstone over the last 30 years.
I'm the middle one of three. I have my elder brother George and then my little sister Joanna. When we were kids, we were the generation to be seen but not heard. And so most of my life, early formative years, I can just remember the nursery. And the house was slightly, off limits. And so we spent most of the time outside.
We had such fun. Do you know, all that side of life here was an adventure. Every day was different. You can imagine living here on the farm. There's so much stuff to do. The woods, the fields, the house. If it was raining outside, we could ride our bikes inside. And it was just a magical childhood.
Our biggest entertainment was playing the sand pit, which was literally 4 bits of logs with sand in the middle. It was funny bringing people back from school. I was always rather embarrassed asking people to come back to this house because we had, spiders, haunted, the house was freezing cold, damp, etc. Of course, my friends were thrilled to come here and see our life, see that we had swords, had a wonderful place to hide and seek, and we had staff, I suppose is what you call them.
What came with the house was Mr. George Thomas, who was the butler, he started out unbelievably grand. When he was employed by my great-grandmother, Bunny, he had footmen underneath him, he had maids underneath him, and slowly all the staff went as the time went by. It was just him left with the family.
Mr. Thomas, old George Thomas, wonderful man. He started working here in 1927, I think, and he took over as butler when the previous butler was found to be selling the drink from the cellar in Tetbury, and he was given the sack, and Thomas took over. So he was butler here for nearly 50 years.
And I remember this room, we had to be 8 years old prior to us being able to come down for breakfast and join my parents. And when we came down, we sat down and we were served breakfast by Thomas, which was an amazing thing. I mean, I can't really believe it myself now, thinking about it. And I I wouldn't say I was fussy, but I didn't like yolks of egg. Whenever I sat down for breakfast, my egg magically didn't have any yolk. And I hadn't realised that Thomas had sort of worked out that I didn't like yolks, and he thought I ought to have eggs. So I had the only boiled eggs without any yolks. He'd carefully taken them out and put the lids back on.
And he said, there's some ways to behave in this house, madam. One does not have dogs on your sofa. One does not feed the dogs at the table, and no dogs go upstairs.
This room, the oak room of the house, was used by Mum and Dad as the small dining room of the house. If we had bigger affairs, it was in the ballroom. We could set up the table, and Thomas would come and serve. At that point, he would wear gloves. The butler in the evening would wear gloves. I can't remember him ever wearing a white tie. I think the butler would have worn a white tie when Mum and Dad first took over in 1958. It wasn't just his job that he did the fires, polish the silver, wind up the clocks.
And Paddy, I mean, rather like Dada, he started working here as a very young man. He was a failed jockey, and having decided he was never going to be a proper jockey, became the groom here. And he worked, again, for 50 years here. Nothing happened in this place without Paddy's say-so. He did everything from mowing the lawn to looking after the horses, going to do the wooding. Everything happened around Paddy. And again, another man we absolutely adored.
But it was sort of expected of a house to have them. And I think it enabled Mum and Dad to do other things. Dad was very county-minded, and he commanded the local yeomanry regiment. He also was a JP, and latterly, he was a deputy lieutenant, which is the Queen's representative in the county, and so had a lot of that to do. Mum, really, her first love, other than her children, were the cows, and she was very much involved in running the dairy side of the farm, and she was a keen horse rider as well, so she spent a lot of time out on the horses. And all I can really say about it is that it didn't feel odd.
They were extended members of my family. I was honoured to have them. Della came as was she 15 or 14? 15 when she came to work here, and she was here to the year she died. Paddy came when I was 3 and always stuck up for me.
I mean, it was a happy childhood, but like following so many people, went away to boarding school when I was 11, having been day school locally here. I didn't quite get the A-levels I'd expected. And so I went to work for London and worked for cattle auctioneers. Bizarrely, in the early 80s, a national cattle auctioneers firm was in London. And then, about that stage, my parents had moved back into the what you might call the servants' wing or the new wing, and leaving these rooms not used on a day-to-day family basis. And so we had to be more commercial, and we went into trying to make money out of the house, started with weddings, etc., visits, and they suddenly needed to be run more professionally. And so I really took over that job, having had the office experience of working in London. I felt that I could see the house through to your generation. I felt we owed it to Mum and Dad, who'd taken it on very young, to assist them doing that. What I see as Chavenage is that it's a family home. And, in the way the best news was that you and Emma wanted to take it on, because that's what I wanted to enable. I didn't want to make it a soulless, just commercial centre. I mean, if you really want to live comfortably, live in these rooms with the heating on, you wanted to have somebody to cook your dinner, you're talking sort of 300,000 a year just to keep yourself standing still. So I tried to think of things to do, and it started with the public, and then we thought, well, if you got them, we might as well feed them. And so Joanna, who had trained to be a cook at Prue cookery school in London, came back, so we offered then teas in the house, then lunches, did dinners. The wedding trade built up. Even now we have people who come back and they look at Chavenage not as a house, not as an estate, but as almost a person. And people know it because they got married here, they know it because they've come to various things, whether it was Shakespeare on the lawn, whether it was a fete for the church, whether it was an event, pony club event. And it really is part of the locality as well as our family house. Everyone else feels their ownership of it. I've had a privileged life. I've met very attractive actors. I've been well fed, as you can see, had, dinner parties. Here we've had royalty in the house, but it's been home.
I've never ever been bored here, never been lonely. We've always had people. I think I was the last of the generation where you didn't really need to have a career and go to work. I was always slightly tied to having horses, so my jobs worked around doing riding and competitions. Though I learned to cook in a hotel in Tetbury after doing a cooking course in London. And then I went travelling, and it's given me a wonderful life. I've cooked in Australia, the Alps, South Africa, Scotland, Ireland. So I've been very spoiled. And the opportunity to come back here and help Caroline with the house. This is my kitchen, which was used as a base for the rival's kitchen. But funny enough, it was always the kitchen for the house. So this is a 15th century manor house kitchen. I am now the cook. I do all the in-house catering, which is quite bizarre considering I was brought up with the family cook Louisa of my grandmother's. And I think she'd be looking down at me now thinking, gosh, I taught her well. I don't do the big stuff. I like the filming, they bring caterers in, and the big weddings, they bring their own caterers. But I do all the bread and butter type catering, the coach loads, the corporate, the shooting lunches. Like I'm doing a tea tomorrow, I must get my scones out of the oven. It's the house which works. The house is all encompassing. It's like a family member. And it's been a privilege and a surprise that we are here today.
One thing, if you could see, what's the most important thing for you to see, and how Chavenage moves on over the next 30 to 40 years? Where would you like Chavenage to be?
Here.
And what would you like it to be? How would you like
a
it
home,
to be?
which it is, and looking after the family. Chavenage looks after the family.
And then can you sum up Chavenage in 4 words?
Home. One word.
And what's your relationship like with Dad?
He's my big brother. And big brothers, younger sisters always look up to big brothers.
Well, this is the room I grew up in. I spent 17 years in this room, and I have to say, I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. Well, having spent 17 years, I then found out this room had been exorcised twice by my great-grandmother because it was a guest room, and the guests complained there was a figure each night leaning over their bed, and it caused a bit of a stir, so she thought she'd better go and get the local vicar to come and do an exorcism, which he did, but that didn't seem to stop anything. So then she thought she must have the wrong religion. So went and got the Roman Catholic priest to come and do his exorcism. And that still didn't get anything kind of changed, and the room was basically shut up. They didn't use this room until I came along, and Grandma then said, well, it's ridiculous having a room you can't use. If we painted it a nice colour, put the baby in it, he won't mind. And I had most terrifying childhood, and I could only sleep with my head under the pillow. And I would only take the pillow off my head when I could hear the birds singing in the morning. I knew it would be light. This room has changed quite a lot since I was here, I have to say. The furniture is all very different. I had more kind of children's kind of furniture in here. I had a little desk. That desk was there in the window. That was my secret desk. It's got a little secret drawer in it. And the sink over there, I remember washing my teeth. And do you know when you know that someone's watching you? And I'd be washing my teeth and I'd be looking around expecting to see someone. Never saw anyone, but I had this feeling always over my shoulder that someone was in this room with me. These pictures show my first motorbike. This is after school. I went to Australia and I worked in Western Australia on a big ranch. And they used to have horses, but luckily the horses were kind of redundant by the time I got out there, and they just bought these motorbikes, and it was a little 125, and I absolutely loved it.
It must feel quite strange, kind of having your son in your old bedroom, because I don't actually think many people would have moved out their homes.
Yeah.
But
from our point of view, it's quite normal. I mean, we like the kind of continuation, and we're very fortunate that the whole kind of generation system has worked extremely well for us.
We've been pretty lucky with succession.
I think we have, and I hope you enjoy it as much as we enjoyed it.
Well, I bloody hope I'm not spending 17 years with a pillow over my head.
Well, I don't think so. You won't be in this room, I don't think.
So talk me through this.
Oh, I recognise this.
Jeeves and Hawks.
Jeeves and Hawks with G.L. Williams on it. This was my Harrow boater, and it made a very good frisbee, actually, when you weren't wearing it on your hat. You had to kind of perch it on it, and you had to kind of go like that. And you then put araldite all over it, because it otherwise fell apart, and it became quite a good weapon. Do you like the Bond?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
I know exactly, the top hat.
Which is why it's got this glue stuff all over it.
Oh.
I put that on.
Now, I got told that you got kicked out of school.
I never got kicked out of school.
Or you got in trouble for bringing revolver bullets.
Well, this house has got all sorts of things in it.
Yeah.
And this is not Harrow. This is prep school. This is when I was about 10.
Yeah.
And we'd been playing up in the attics, and I came across some amazing bullets. I mean, really big, heavy bullets. Anyway, they went to school, and I remember one day after breakfast, the headmaster was doing announcements. And he suddenly stood up and said, "Now I found some bullets in the gym," because they were so heavy in my pocket.
You took them out?
And I took them left
for PE.
For PE. And they were found. And I had to go up and say, "Yes, I'm terribly sorry, they were mine." And about kind of 2 days after that, my parents were coming down to take me out for Sunday.
Yeah.
And he said, "I'm going to tell your parents." So I had the most miserable 2 days waiting for the Sunday when my father was then dragged into the headmaster's office to be presented these. All right, what are you doing giving your son these bullets?
I mean, it's lucky you didn't take the swords or the blunderbusses.
I didn't tell you. For me, I mean, bullets, like you, they don't really mean, they're totally safe. But it's not kind of thing you're going to give your 10-year-old son to take to school.
Well, I mean, I was brought up, you give me tank shells. Luckily they're empty. Let's take you into the nursery, Dad. Seems to be that the house is falling apart, Dad. I don't know if you've noticed.
Yeah, it's a bit damp, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is new.
Yeah, look.
God.
How wet the wall is.
Soaking.
Dripping.
Absolutely sodden.
So, Dad.
This brings back memories. Do you know, this was one of the best nurseries any child could possibly imagine. See how big it is. I mean, we could play badminton in here. It makes a very good badminton court, in fact.
And apparently you had a few nannies up here just looking after you.
Our first nanny was called Fat Nanny, which she seems to have kind of didn't mind being called Fat Nanny. She was lovely, and then Della took over, who kind of remained here forever.
What was it like bringing friends back here to play?
Well, for us, it's totally as normal. In fact, it's quite fun having friends because you can run around and do all sorts of things. I remember I brought a friend up, and you see that rather kind of sharp radiator. We were playing a kind of tag game, and the friend ended up with his head bashed on the blood going everywhere. That was one of my earlier memories.
So talking of memories, I did do some digging through here.
Oh my goodness!
And I noticed
I recognise that.
we've got so many old clothes
Yeah.
that I think we could play dress up for decades. But I did notice,
I don't know if
I've seen the picture. So if I chuck
That's
on,
Grandpa's when he was a colonel,
if I put on the colonels
and second
you-
lieutenant.
and you put on the second lieutenant,
This
let's
is
see
my
if it's-
first uniform.
Should we see if it still fits?
Oh, I bet it doesn't. That suits you. That fits you rather well.
So would that work well? Is that how I salute?
Gosh, you were tiny!
Yes, you never knew me when I was small.
It's crazy to hear from my dad's generation and just to hear their stories of what it was like to grow up in Chavenage. Now, I didn't actually grow up in the house. I grew up in the farmhouse up the road. But imagine growing up with butlers and cooks, and you've got this enormous extended family. And the further you go back, the bigger the family, which is absolutely insane. Because nowadays, with Ems and I, there's just kind of two of us, and obviously we got help with Caroline, Joanna, and Dad, but we haven't got the staff like they used to. So we're doing all the jobs. Now, to run these buildings takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. It's a life's project, and
It is.
we just need to find some revenue coming soon.
We do. It's not the days of the butlers anymore, is it? I'm basically your butler.
Yeah.
But I think it's so nice for me, especially, to see all of that footage and to see how important all of those people were to the family. And I wish I got to meet Della because she sounded absolutely incredible.
Do you know what? Della was amazing, and I actually didn't imagine Mr. Thomas to look like Mr. Thomas until I saw the pictures,
No,
the
me
few
either.
pictures we had. And Paddy has been an absolute mainstay. Ever since I've grown up, I've always just got this image or this voice inside my head of Paddy going, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And he was just like, literally just kind of ran the estate.
That'll be you.
Lived just over there. It was absolutely amazing. But I just want to say a massive thank you to
Yes.
everyone that's worked, that's helped, and that continues to look after Chavenage. It means the absolute world to the Lowe's-Williams family, and we couldn't thank everyone enough. And
And we couldn't do it without you.
we definitely couldn't. We definitely couldn't.
Okay, thank you for watching, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's going to get better and better, and we want more and more subscribers.
Time to salute. Are you ready?
Ready?
Up!